But it is. Well, but that's
get like a poor man come and get a different. Yeah. I didn't know the steel man say this is about a time you spend an hour and run 8 gallons of fuel out. Don't average out, yeah. I feel good right now, but when I wake up in bed, impaired.
I had 32 acres of pines cut down from Bear Ridge. There's acres. In my little girl boat.
Mine seems to get worse the older I get. Ever had any? But the older you get, the more issues. Spirit, evil, wicked.
I should have went.
Wicked.
I looked it up. Because we've got non-fair.
I don't know what non-fair is. Oh, yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
I knew he was in the hospital. I talked to him.
That's Bill Blake.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah,
Yeah, I got mixed up.
Don't go to
He
him.
was young.
No, whatever y'all do, don't ever come. That's what fine.
Yeah. Him and Phil
Guilty.
are good friends.
Okay.
That's how I get stuck with him.
You got the Roddy. Roddy. The Roddy's, that's you. Roddy's right.
Phil was cat.
I think it's Roddy's. No, it's Rocky. Rocky's in Rod, yeah.
That's been a long time
Still a
ago.
chicken.
Still a regular.
But he was there for a whole.
No, I thought it was.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, the matriarch. Yes. Yes.
Hey, ladies, how y'all doing? What's she gonna speak on one number? Ms. Burns? I don't want to talk, yeah.
Good, man. How about you?
This time, I'd like to call the Anderson County Council regular meeting of March 19th to order. I want to welcome each and every one of you here. Thank y'all for coming. We're going to move on now with invocation, pledge allegiance. All rise. Councilman Jimmy Davis, please. We'll give our invocation, pledge allegiance.
Let us pray. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you for the time that we have tonight to make decisions for this wonderful county that we live in. Father, we ask that you guide our thoughts and our minds and our words tonight, that they may be pleasing unto you and that we may govern in a way that is pleasing to you. Father, we ask that you be with each family that's represented here and carry us safe home again tonight and again back here soon. We pray all this in the sweet name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On item number 3, approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to be made to the March 5th regular council meeting minutes?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I noticed on page 25, line 3, they had the date as 1928, and it should read 1828.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Anybody else have anything? You want to make a motion to accept the minutes with that correction, Mr. Sanders?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Mr. Sanders makes a motion to accept the minutes with that correction. Do we have a second? Second, Ms. Wilson. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign. So the motion carries unanimously. And on citizens' comments, Mr. Harmon calls your name. First round is on agenda matters only. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and district for the record. Address the chair, please. Mr. Harmon.
Mr. Chairman, first speaker is Eddie Waits.
Mr. Wait, excuse me. Mr. Burns, make sure you get that mic on.
Good evening. My name's Eddie Waits, councilman for the town of Pelzer, and I wanted to speak just for a minute about the proposal from the Anderson County Sheriff's Department with the town of Pelzer for contracted law enforcement services. And I wanted somebody from the town to be here to let you know how important this is to us. We believe this is probably going to be one of the most important decisions that we make this year. And it's certainly something that everyone in the town will benefit from, and we encourage your support in the matter of passing this issue when it gets to you. And I wanted to let you know that on behalf of the town and the citizens, this is something we need, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Carm.
Mr. Chairman, next speaker is Elizabeth Fant.
Elizabeth Fant, District 3. It's been a busy week. I'm speaking on number 10, number 11, number 14. The van accessible parking. I know what the problem is there. You got people who are parking in the blue lines that for a van accessible is not just a slot. They have to have the blue line section on the side so they can get the wheelchair out. And I've seen people park in those places. The biggest thing that I'm wanting to hear from is number 11. They're recycling solid waste. I have a lot of ideas of things that we can do in the county. Yesterday I was on the way to Greenville, and DOT had about 15 different people out there. I don't know whether they were inmates or who they were, but they had just a pile of orange bags that they had picked up. I talk to Greg Smith regularly, and I've got him down on the other side of where I live, and today when I rode through, a large amount of that part had been picked up. We've just got to get everybody mindful of not pitching it out the window and not using that the outdoors for their trash cans. We can do a lot better. Have a lot of ideas on that. The building number 14-5B, I'm glad to see that since the tenant that was using that small building has given it up, that Belton, where I reside, has asked to use that building, which would be, hope to move their farmer's market up in the middle of town where nobody goes. That for a place where a policeman can park his car, and it's a tiny little building. They can go in and use that to do their paperwork, but it's for law enforcement. And number 6, under number 14, the CAFR. There are a lot of things in there about last year's report that are good, but there are a lot of things in there, too, that I think we can tighten up on the way we're spending money. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen.
Mr. Chairman, next speaker is William Meredith.
Council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you briefly here. I also signed up to speak later because there's many things that I want to get into. I want to piggyback on what Ms. Fant was talking about as far as recycling. I'm very much kind of an environmentalist, but I think we all really should be. I don't know if y'all are aware of it, but you go buy bottled water now, there's microscopic bits of plastic in our bottled water. I'm not trying to run down our local water people either. I'm sure they're doing the best they can, but everything we can keep out of our watershed is that much better. And there's just a lot of things we can do. I think we have, if anything, we have just a lack of imagination here in the way we're dealing with some of this stuff. I've heard y'all talk about the landfill and the problems, and everything that we can keep out of that landfill, I think, makes economic sense to do. There are programs where they're turning plastics into road resurfacing materials. There are programs where now there's new developments to turn plastic waste into ethanol. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. We've got Clemson University right up the road that's doing recycling. I'd love to see us maybe do some partnering with them. I'd love to see us take every school in this county could be a drop-off place for people to recycle. I would love to see our city, Anderson City, work with Anderson County, because when somebody throws a piece of trash out in front of my yard, it washes down the hill, it's in the city. So, I mean, it's not a boundary issue. We could get beyond turf issues or whatever. I think we could all pull the same way and make some real headway. But I'd like to challenge everybody on this council to let's turn this place into a green town. We were the electric city at one point. We're a very progressive town, and I'd like to see us get back to being the kind of place that we could be proud to claim from an environmental standpoint. So I've got, like I say, I've got a good many things that I've been thinking about. I'd like to incorporate AU, some of the other larger generators of waste, a whole lot of things we can do, but I just wanted to throw it out there. I've created a Facebook page called Waste Nothing. That's a Ben Franklin quote that I love. Doesn't even waste any verbs, it's waste nothing. And I'd love to have you all join, trying to get the community involved, because that's very important. There's an EPA website that discusses that, and that's what we're talking about, getting the community and the elected officials involved in these programs. I know there's a lot of challenges, and I appreciate the job our administration is doing now. I understand we're getting some recognition for the job we're doing. I just think there's always room for improvement. So I'd like to see us do better, and thank you very much. Hope we can do some. Thank y'all.
Mr. Harmon.
Mr. Chairman, no one else has signed up.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Moving on to item number 5, observations and comments for District 2, Ms. Floyd. Ms. Floyd.
We in District 2 are beginning to come up with some ideas and some strides to assist with the trash that's going to, the trash pickup that's going to happen in April. But we have some other issues in District 2 that we need help with. But it seems like when I make the call for help, the only thing I get is that we don't have any money. Well, we do have money that we can do some things with. We're going to work on the budget this year. And folks, you all need to be at the budget hearings, the budget meetings, to get your opinions in. about what needs to be done. In District 2, we have burnt houses. They're burnt down, and people are living around there. Think about how you would feel if you were living next door to a burnt-up house, and nobody was, I mean, there are a lot of people there, and they just keep coming out there and just coming out there. They aren't doing nothing. They just sit around right next to the door. You wouldn't like that. But yet we allow people to live like that, people who have been coming and asking what to do. Last year, we only got $50,000 to tear down burnt houses. Now, you think about that. $50,000 for 7 districts to tear down burnt-up houses. We wouldn't have to do that if we would follow our own laws. If your house is burnt down, then it's up to you really to clean it up. But you don't do anything. You just sit there, and it sits there, and it sits there until we get enough people to complain about it. This year, we need more money in that budget to tear down houses. One year, we had $150,000, and even that didn't go all the way. But we need more money in that budget to tear down these burnt-up houses. There's water problems draining on from one place to another on people's property. And what I have heard is that the water problem came from when they were fixing something else. And they just fixed it, and the water just started draining on other people's property. That needs something to be done about that. Drugs. The Sheriff's Department has been getting messages about drugs. And they say they don't have enough people to handle the drug problem. Now, that's bad. That's bad. I remember when there was I have gone through a drug situation, and I called the sheriff, and they came out, and they looked at it, and they said, it's a drug problem, all right. We'll see you later. You know, nothing was done. Absolutely nothing. Okay, and then there's a neighborhood where people have loud music. Loud music. It's in a neighborhood of seniors. They don't need to hear that. And then when they called the police told them that they just had to live with it. No, we don't have to live with it. We have laws, we have regulations, we have ordinances. All these things should come together to solve some of these problems. Now, I can only speak about District 2 because that's all I know. I don't know the other districts. I don't know if anyone else has said nothing, but I'm talking about District 2. And we need help. We need the kind of real help to help us solve some of these things. There is a person who calls me constantly, but I can't go over there and clean it up. I can't do it. If I could, I would. Then there's the loud music. I could go over there, but it wouldn't be pleasant. But what we're going to need is all of us together. You need to come to that budget meeting. It's your money. It's your budget. And you're letting somebody else do it for you, and you don't say anything about it until it becomes a problem. And I'll be there with you. I got your back. But I just want you to have mine, too. I thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, ordinance third reading. There are none. So we'll move on to item number 7A, ordinance second reading. 7A, 2019-008, ordinance authorizing and executing delivery and fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between Anderson County, South Carolina, company or companies known to the company, to the county, this time, Project Tarpon. It's second reading. Do you have anything you'll add this, Mr. Nelson?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, other than this is another solar project, $12 million in capital investment. Properties, the total of the 3 properties that they're looking at right now are generating $668 in property tax, and the new property tax in a year will be $29,034, and over 30 years, $871,000 in property tax. So an opportunity for a better return on those properties. But thank you, sir.
Thank you. We have a motion to move it on the floor. Motion, Mr. Wilson. We have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Davis. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like signs. The motion carries. Answer. Moving on to item number 7B, 2019-009. Ordinance authorizing and executing delivery fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between Anderson County, South Carolina, and company or companies known to the county at this time. Project 2019-0114 with respect to certain economic development property in the county. Again, it's second reading. We have a motion to move this forward.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Davis, second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? Does you have any comments, anything?
No, sir, other than this is just a great opportunity for Anderson County where we won't have to be spending money to develop our own industrial park or build spec buildings. This is a developer who will be doing that for, of course, his own purposes, but we don't have any buildings that are available as Class A industrial buildings, and this is our opportunity to get that.
Ms. Nelson. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All in favor? So motion carries. We're on item number 8, ordinance first reading, 2019-012. This is 8A, ordinance authorizing and executing delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement by and between Anderson County, South Carolina, and company or companies known to the county at this time as project 2018-0801 with respect to certain economic development property in the county, where such property will be subject to certain payments in lieu of taxes, including the provision of certain special source credit.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yeah.
I would like to recuse myself. I know that the company that's doing this, I have some lease agreements with subsidiaries of them.
Let the record state Mr. Sanders recusing himself and stepping outside. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. We'll holler, yeah. We have a motion to move this forward.
So moved.
Motion, Ms. Wilson, have a second.
Question.
We got to get it on the floor, Ms. Floyd. We don't get.
Thank
We have
you.
a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Graham. Any discussion, Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for the just indulgence, but our copier blew up, and so these are the documents that I normally hand you for first readings especially, and if I could call on Mr. Burns to help me get those to you, I apologize.
Yeah.
This is a project. The company is over 50 years old. It's a high-tech company that specializes in research and development of advanced materials in aerospace, medical devices, and construction materials. They're promising, they hope to create as many as 18 jobs. However, they're guaranteeing 12 jobs. Now, this was a competitive project with another state, and so we've worked very closely with these folks, and we think we've won this project. We hope to have an announcement sometime in the next couple of months. But they're going to create these jobs. They have an average pay of $30 an hour. So just with those 12 jobs, the annual income payroll will be $720,000 just out of those few jobs. And the SSRC that we've offered is a 50% SSRC, and the property tax will run on those properties. Last year they paid $95,000, paid $48,000, and the total for the new year with a new project will be a total of $95,000 in 2020, and over 20 years, $1.392 million. This comes to council as a recommendation from staff and from the Economic Development Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman.
That's Ms. Floyd had first. Ms. Floyd.
Would you please explain, please, in layman's language, what this is all about? I know we can't know what they make or what they are going to do, with this property at this time, but it wasn't clear during the reading of it. So would you please explain to the people that are here who might be interested what this is all about?
Sure.
I thank you.
This is a company that's been in our county about 25 years, that's been in business for over 50. They are a research and development organization that has developed alliances with Clemson University and used their technology and intellectual properties and developed those into a number of things. Basically advanced materials of all kinds that can be used, anything plastic, ceramics, specialized metals that can be used in aerospace, medical industry, and construction as well. They do mostly research and development, so these are really scientists' job opportunities. Anywhere, the average is $30 an hour, but some of those will be much more than that. So it's a good opportunity, and especially with the unemployment rate we have right now, it would be very difficult for us to find a lot of employees for anybody. So this is a good opportunity for the county to get high-paying jobs and help us raise our average annual salary.
Anything else, Ms. Floyd? Ms. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this morning, I called Mr. Berth Nelson asking some questions about the paperwork going with this inducement agreement and resolution. There was some confusing language, and he kindly had it clarified, and that's before us, that deals with the job creation. So I would recommend that we accept as an amendment to this inducement agreement the clarifying language. And he was kind enough to get it to us in time. I mean, we can go ahead and vote for it as it is, but maybe we'll come back at the second reading to...
Mr. Chairman, too, if you... I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson. Yeah, this was our first attempt at trying to get a standardized fee agreement. And, of course, we partner a great deal with Greenville and a lot of our multi-county park agreements. And this is almost identical to the Greenville format they use for fee in lieu of taxes. Some of their wording is not exactly what we've always used, but talking about the projected or anticipated jobs and the guaranteed number, that language is a little skewed, and I agree with Ms. Wilson about that language. And the change you have before you is the red line component and change that we had our attorney that was reviewing these documents prepare for us. One of the things, though, that is simplifies a lot of this is in the ordinance itself, there's a summary page, and that's in your, not before you, but it's in your packet of the fee in lieu of tax special source revenue credit agreement for this project. On page 4 is this summary page that identifies exactly and clarifies that language without having the words there. It's just the numbers. So, but I apologize for not addressing that in my presentation just now about the red letter information.
Thank you. Tom, would it be appropriate now to ask the amendment to change this red line, or wait until it's second reading?
We can do it now, Mr. Chairman, or we could wait till second
Well, we
reading.
take care of it tonight. Ms. Wilson made the motion for to amend it for this. We have a second. Second, Mr. Graham. Now discussion to the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, show of hands. So the motion carries. Now we're moving on back to the original motion. Do we have any questions or comments further on it? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. So the motion carries. We're moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your support, and please forgive me for the confusion.
We're moving on to number 9, resolutions, R 2019-012, resolution authorizing the executing delivery of an inducement agreement by and between Anderson County Cyclone and Project 2018-0801. Certain conditions. This is the same thing we just talked about. We have a motion to move this forward.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Wilson, second, Mr. Graham. Are there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there is those same language changes in this document as well, so you may need to get an amendment.
Yep.
And go ahead and approve
We have
that.
an amendment to get the numbers and the letters and the red liners in there would all be the same with the inducement amounts to ordinance the first reading. We have a motion for that. Ms. Wilson makes a motion to move up. Have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Graham. Now discussion on the amendment. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. So the motion carries.
No, it didn't.
Motion didn't carry.
No,
Why come it didn't?
I didn't vote.
But it carried. But how you vote, Ms. Floyd?
I vote to abstain because I don't understand any of it.
So the motion, Ms. Floyd abstains, Mr. Davis is in favor, Mr. Dunn's in favor, Mr. Graham's in favor, Mr. Wilson's in favor, Mr. Wilson's in favor. Mr. Sanders has recused himself. Now, going back to the original motion, are there any discussion on it?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Floyd.
I know that this resolution goes along with the resolution that on the first reading, 2019-012, okay? I know that. And where did he go?
He left. Yes, ma'am. He's back there.
Oh, okay. I know that, and I know this thing about the red line thing that somebody caught. But there's no understanding here. I don't understand a bit of it. And when we talked, you didn't mention anything about any redlining things and what was different in this one. We talked about the whole thing, but it was never mentioned to me. Now, it may have been back in this book back here, but when we talked, I thought that it was explained very well, and I was pleased. But I'm not pleased now because I don't understand it. And I'm sure there's a lot of other folks up here don't understand it either. But I'm just big enough and brave enough to say I don't understand it. So whatever it is, I will not be voting for it. And I thank you so much. We have some things to do this week anyway coming up. And maybe while we're riding out to the homes of the ladies there, we can get it done. But I'll vote on the second reading if it's clear. And I thank you.
All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed, abstentions. So the motion carries. Mr. Davis in favor, Mr. Sanders accused himself, Mr. Dunn in favor, Mr. Graham in favor, Mr. Wooten in favor, Ms. Wilson in favor, Ms. Floyd abstains. Moving on to item 9B, R 2019-013, a resolution to approve the preparation of Anderson County South Carolina development of a U.S. brief to the United States Supreme Court related to the Kinder Morgan Energy Partners, LPV, of State Forever case, number 18-268. This is something we discussed, I think, in executive session from Legal Matters last meeting. Mr. Harmon, you like to?
Yes, I'll be glad to address it, Mr. Chairman and members of council. This, as you mentioned, this resolution does concern the Kinder Morgan plantation pipeline spill that occurred in the Belton area. As you probably recall, a citizen suit case was brought under the Clean Water Act by Upstate Forever and the Savannah River Keeper. The environmental groups were represented by Southern Environmental Law Center, primarily by Mr. Frank Holloman, who is with SELC. In the federal district court, the court ruled that it did not have jurisdiction to consider the case because of a definition within the Clean Water Act. The Fourth Circuit overturned that case and vacated the district court opinion. Kinder Morgan has now petitioned the Supreme Court excuse me, for a writ of certiorari to consider the case before the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court has held this case in abeyance because there is another case before the court involving a case out of Hawaii that has the same type issues in it. And Mr. Holloman has contacted us and asked us to consider participating in an amicus brief to be filed with the Supreme Court in the Hawaii case. That case will determine the outcome in all likelihood in the Kinder Morgan case. We will be working with the Environmental and Regulatory Law Clinic of the University of Virginia Law School. They would actually prepare the brief and get it ready to submit to the Supreme Court. This would be done by them at no cost to the county. And so that's what this resolution covers.
Mr. Harmon, for the record, I misspoke a while ago. This was not discussed in executive session. I was thinking about something else. This is a entirely different thing, just about to spill. So, do we have a motion to get this on the floor?
They're moved.
Motion, Mr. Wilson, have a second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Davis. Now discussion.
May I?
Ms. Wilson.
This is a very, very important case for our county, and it basically involves the definition of a waterway. Am I right, Mr. Harmon?
It involves the real issue in the case has to do with whether or not a citizen suit action can be brought under the Clean Water Act where the pollutants are migrating into a water course and not being dumped out of a pipe, if you will, into the water course. That's the real issue in the case.
Well, I think in that case it's both. Just to give a recap, the Kinder Morgan plantation pipeline leaked somewhere between 300,000 and 500,000 gallons of petroleum product over a period of time. And the pollution, the product is going directly into the waterway. It's in surface water. You go over there and look, it's a creek. The beavers have dammed up in 2 places, so that's probably a blessing in that it's slowing down the migration downstream. But about 7-8 miles downstream is Broadway Lake. And beyond that, the Savannah River. So the polluted water, as it goes down the stream, affects a lot of communities. And it's very important that we make sure that we keep our position in court on this matter, because Kinder Morgan does not want to clean up the terrible mess they've made. They've made some cleanup measures, but they don't want to clean up to the extent that should be appropriate. My personal comment on that is it should be as clean as Mr. Kinder's backyard. And Mr. Kinder is the gentleman who was very involved in Enron before it went down. A brilliant man. He's made a lot of money, worked hard and made it, but I don't think it's really appropriate for a community like Belton to suffer the impact of this terrible leak without them making the appropriate effort to clean up. They're getting this for the U.S. Supreme Court is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anyone else?
Yes.
Floyd?
Okay. At the time that this occurred, Broadway Lake and I contended that the water also affected the lake. But we were told it did not affect the lake. This is what we were told. And but now it seems as if it's changed their mind and it did affect the lake. That I just picked up on tonight. But this Kinder Morgan thing is a bone of contention for some of us, okay? But I would like for you very much, Leon, to explain again to us about what is preparing to happen now. What are they trying to do now?
Ms. Floyd, what is preparing to happen is the Kinder Morgan case is at the Supreme Court. There's a case from Hawaii with similar issues to the Kinder Morgan case that is also at the Supreme Court. And I'm talking about the United States Supreme Court now. The court has accepted cert in the Hawaii case, and they're holding in abeyance the Kinder Morgan case until they hear the case in the Hawaii case and make a ruling. And that ruling will likely impact the Kinder Morgan case, depending on how the Supreme Court rules in that case. And so where we are now is the county has been asked to participate in the preparation of a brief to the United States Supreme Court explaining our position with regard to the issue that is before the court.
Okay, so if the county is going to do that, will Broadway Lake be included in that this time? In fact, we were not even invited to the meeting. I think the newspaper said that if I wanted to have a meeting, I could have my own meeting. When we were all discussing the same thing. But will Broadway Lake be in this particular court case as well? It was just said that it went down to Broadway Lake.
Well, the issue is a little broader than identifying a particular water body, if you will. What happened with respect to, and what I think you are recalling is that some testing was done, and the test did not reveal any petroleum constituents in Broadway Lake, but did reveal petroleum constituents in the creeks higher up in the watershed that feed into Broadway Lake. Mm-hmm. It might very well be that they simply had gotten diluted enough to the point in Broadway Lake that the equipment being used to perform the test did not pick up an amount of material, and it was just listed as non-detect. That's what typically happens in the environmental area when testing is performed. But it almost would have to impact to some extent Broadway Lake, because there are constituents in the upper reaches of watersheds that drain into Broadway Lake. But I want to reiterate that testing did not show any constituents actually in Broadway Lake when the tests were performed.
Well, okay, well, see, I guess you can understand I'm getting mixed messages here, because it was just said that it went all the way down to Broadway Lake, so, but I guess consider the source, and I thank you so much for explaining that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. So the motion carries. Moving on to item number 10, report from the Planning and Public Works Committee. Without objection, Mr. Wilson, you can do both of your reports now. Get them out of the way.
Thank you. Oh, okay. We met on March the 6th at 11:30 a.m. to cover agenda items as follows. Number 3 on our agenda dealt with the review of zoning standards in relation to commercial uses and storage in residential properties. Members of County Council and this committee have had a number of complaints regarding what seems to be a loophole in our existing ordinance where heavy equipment, piles of mulch, and logs are kept in a zoned area adjoining a subdivision, creating a haven for vermin. The principal in question advertises the address of the residence as his place of business, and county personnel have visited this site many times in the past 18 months, but the ugly mess continues, and that's just one example of the issues. The other concern was used car lots in subdivisions, creating safety and nuisance issues in residential zoned areas. South Carolina laws allow vehicle sales of up to 5 cars per year. Citizens and residents complain that some of these home sites are being used for permanent used car displays and sales far beyond the homeowner occasionally disposing of 1 or 2 family vehicles. County staff recommended some language changes to correct these problems, which would be more fully studied at the next Planning and Public Works Committee meeting. Number 4, our committee was presented the Leadership Anderson's Tiny House Project update. Our own Seth Ridley and Mr. Trey Burns and the leadership class are raising funds for this project, for which they hope will alleviate some of the homelessness in Anderson and begin a process of redeveloping and making useful a formerly beautiful mill community that had not had new homes built in approximately 50 years. Leadership Anderson has purchased the lot, bought the architectural plans and engineering for an approximate 700 square foot home on East Street. The neighbors there have been very welcoming and excited for an improvement in their neighborhood. Tonight, this group is seeking some funding from County Council discretionary funds. This is a worthy project that represents one approach among many that our committee is exploring to help alleviate local affordable housing concerns. Number 5, we discussed the quorum issue afflicting our citizens' zoning advisory groups. Each zoned precinct in our county should have at least one resident citizen appointed to this board. Each district has multiple members according to their number of zoned precincts. In a rezoning process or an exception to the zoning of an application, our planning department researches the impact and other issues of the project in the immediate neighborhood and makes their recommendation to in the first step in the process. The planning department must advertise the time, date, place, and purpose of each application involving newspaper ads and postcards sent to each landowner of record within 2,000 feet. The planning department does not initiate the process until they have a confirmed quorum for the Associated Citizen Zoning Advisory Group. This board is not a state-mandated part of the process, but that provides a vital insight as to the neighbors' desires as reflected by their comprehensive land use map and plan, from which the zoning classifications were originally drawn. Our Planning Commission, which is the next step in the state mandate and is state mandated and has a regularly scheduled monthly meeting, is the next step. The problem that has come about in the last 2 years is that after elaborate arrangements and expenses are made, some of the committee members who committed to coming or not showing up, leading to canceled meetings. Surrounding landowners, applicants, county staff, and others who came to participate are horribly inconvenienced by this situation. Our county council has amended the ordinance to allow the application to proceed to the Planning Commission and schedule. But this dilemma was discussed and referred to our next Planning and Public Works meeting. The 6th item, an abbreviated capital improvement project and capital maintenance project list for 2021-2024 is quickly looked at and request for further detail made. This is a state-mandated part of our budget process. Next, we listen to a handicapped parking issue which was mostly occurring in the city of Anderson and involved an elderly couple trying to park their van in the designated van handicap parking spot that are being taken by others. The county has no jurisdiction in this matter, but suggestions were made to help alleviate the problem, and our planning staff is trying to get in touch with the city to see what they can do to help the problem. A motion to adjourn was made after we agreed to meet again on 15 March. So thank you to all who participated with us. Does anyone in our committee have anything they would like to add to our meeting? Okay, the next Planning and Public Works Committee meeting was on the 15th of March, and it convened at 9:30 a.m. Number 3, our committee took up recommendations regarding amendments to the zoning standards, Chapter 70, Article 6, in relation to commercial uses and storage and residential properties. Our committee voted to move this item to County Council for full council review and approval. The proposed amendment is in your packet marked Exhibit A, and it reads as follows. Exhibit A, 6.4, Commercial Equipment and Materials. In all R districts, with the exception of RA, which is residential agricultural, all commercial equipment and materials associated with an off-site business that are stored in a property must be kept enclosed or otherwise screened from public view, that is, using a 6-foot-high stockade fence. Such equipment and materials may include, but are not limited to, tractors, backhoes, front-end loaders, skid steers, ditch witches, grinders, chippers, shredders, large commercial equipment or other machinery, logs, stumps, mulch or debris, paper, plastic, and cardboard debris or containers, auto parts and tires, appliances, and furniture, rock, gravel, railroad ties, building materials, or other supplies or materials. And that is, that was voted on unanimously by our group, and we bring it before you tonight for your consideration.
Coming from the Planning and Public Works Committee, doesn't need a second. Are there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? So the motion carries. Moving on, Ms. Wilson.
Trying to find the next matter. Then item 4 was the traffic study resolution, which is in your packet. This measure was unanimously voted to be moved to full council for approval last year and somehow was overlooked. Our committee revisited this serious matter and voted unanimously to recommend to County Council approval of the following Resolution 2019-14. I'm going to try to find it so I can read the most important parts to y'all. And it's in your packet.
Yes, ma'am.
Resolution
it should be in your book.
Resolution.
Excuse me, Ms. Wilson. Hand forward. Not the amendment changes. To be on a report from the Planning and Public Works of the March 15th meeting, 2019.
It's under number 4. Under 12.
He ain't got a book.
Maybe I can help. If you look at number 12 on our council agenda tonight, it is number 4, the number 4 tab, under 12.
4 under 12. 4 under 12. Not under B. Go ahead, Ms. Wilson. Move on.
This is resolution number 2019-014. The first item under that heading, it says the county administrator is hereby directed through the county procurement process to develop a list of not fewer than 2 traffic engineering firms that have engineers licensed by the state of South Carolina with traffic impact study experience for the purpose of performing traffic impact studies for projects which Section 38-118F of the Anderson County Code requires. The second item to consider in this resolution, the county administrator is further directed to develop a procedure whereby any project within Anderson County requiring a traffic impact study will be performed by an engineering firm on the county's approved list and hired by the county to perform the traffic impact study, including without limitation the following. A, county staff shall determine the scope of services required in the traffic impact study and obtain a cost estimate for such services from an approved engineering firm. B, the project applicant shall provide funds to the county equal to the estimate plus 10% for the traffic impact study. Any funds not used by the engineering firm for the traffic impact study shall be returned to the applicant in a timely manner without interest. C, the county may require additional fees for the traffic impact study from the applicant if the scope of the traffic study expands, the applicant substantially amends the application, additional meetings with the engineer are requested by the applicant, the engineer's presence is requested at meetings with the federal, state, or local agencies, boards, or committees not anticipated in the earlier scope of services. That's the most salient part of that particular resolution. And we voted unanimously to recommend to council approval.
Coming from the Public Works and Planning and Public Works Committee, it doesn't need a second for any discussion.
Chairman.
David.
This is very, very important step for us to move forward in planning for the development, because we had some serious questions about how traffic studies, traffic analysis has been done in certain areas, and I think as a group and the committee felt this was a good, solid step in the right direction to solidify how things are done, have a more efficient, get accurate information.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Anyone else?
Yes.
Ms. Floyd.
Mr. Chairman, since we did not have this information in our booklets, and this is the first time some of us have seen this, I ask that we please, let's table this until we have had time to look at it, read it, and ask questions about it.
Ms. Floyd makes a motion to table it. That's not a debatable thing. I think this is a very important issue, but Ms. Floyd makes a motion to table this. I don't know if we have time, but like I said, it's non-debatable, so we have a second. Second, Ms. Floyd's motion.
I just asked clarification. I mean, will it need to go through 3 readings?
Not a resolution.
So,
It's only good for a year. This has got to come back up, put it in form of ordinance.
okay, so it's now, or we want, okay. I'll second the table then.
Okay. Wood second. All in favor of tabling this issue to next meeting, or show of hands? All opposed? So the motion fails with Mr. Floyd and Mr. Wooten in favor, Mr. Davis, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Graham, Ms. Wilson opposed. Going back to the original motion for discussion, I'd just like to say, point blank what this does, we got in our ordinance to do traffic studies when it meets certain criteria. What this is changing is, instead of the developer or whoever picking that engineer or traffic company, the county picks it. We'll have a list. The developer pays for it. What we've had in the past, it seems like, I'm not accusing nothing, but some very questionable studies. I was at the last planning commission meeting. There's some things brought up there that didn't seem right. So this, I think, just sorts it up, and this is as much, especially Mr. Davis's area, but others too, development we have going on. This is, I think, it's time sensitive. This will come back up. This is only good for a year. Sometime in the next month or so, this will come back up for debate, to be put in an ordinance. See anything about it for 3 readings. The reason this was done for as a resolution, we can get it on the books and start getting some enforcement on it. Any more discussion?
May I?
Ms. Wilson.
This has been bandied about and discussed and researched for well over a year, and I'm on record for railing for some measure to protect our county taxpayers everywhere else in the world. And I've made my living in real estate and done a little bit of development, and I'm here to tell you, anywhere else, when you bring a project in, it's usually not a matter of whether you have to have accel, decel, and turn lanes. You're going to put them in, and it's considered a cost of doing business. How can it be fair to our traveling public and to our county taxpayers for a developer to come in, make their profit skip out and we have bottlenecks of traffic and there's no way we have the money to go back, retrofit that road or upfit that road to meet the new traffic loads. So I'm sorry, I don't know how the measure got overlooked between our committee and coming back to y'all, and I'll take responsibility because obviously I thought it had passed and it didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Floyd.
I think that what is before us could be a good idea, suggestion, proposal, or just whatever. But the thing is that nobody knew about it. I wasn't privy to the Planning Commission where you may have discussed it for years and years. This is the first time we have been offered anything to look at this most important situation, and not to give all council a chance to understand what it is and why it is, and just let a few people know what it is. I think it's I don't think it's right. I really don't think it's right. If it's that important, then it should have been privy for all of us to have seen it. Some of them don't even have this in their booklet, but yet we were asked to vote on it. It just seems, it doesn't seem right.
Mr. Chairman.
Sanders.
Yes, sir. I, along with Mrs. Floyd, did not have that in my packet, but I did attend the Planning Commission meeting, and a lot was discussed, and I do support what is going on here, but I also understand her or Mr. Woot's concerns about not having the packet. But the reason I voted the way I voted was because I did attend the meeting. I did not have the packet in front of me, but I did take notes at the meeting. I think it's a good thing for the county. It will help the taxpayers, and I just wanted to go on record as saying that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? So the motion carries. Mr. Davis, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Wooten, Mr. Graham, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Floyd opposes. Moving on, item number 5. Ms. Wilson.
The recommendations regarding the zoning advisory group was tabled after considerable discussion. There will be further review, and it will be brought back for to this committee in the future, as it's noted that the value of the citizen advisory zoning groups have added especially to those newly zoned areas. It's such a vital link that we're going to try to talk about it a little bit more. The next item, number 6, the overview of the CIP and CMP plan for fiscal years 2021 to 2024 was set aside for the next meeting for greater study with the respective department heads. We had 6 citizens and 5 who spoke, and they were mostly concerned about big containers containing rental unit furniture that were set at a residence between Concord and Brown Roads, along with trash and other unsightly issues affecting their neighborhood. And that goes right in tandem with the previous Chapter 70, Article 6 part that we just amended. They were, it says most of their complaints will be addressed by Chapter 70, Article 6 amendment. We really appreciate the citizen participation, and they're a welcome part to our jobs. Their input was greatly good for the process, and we want to make sure all of our citizens know they're welcome to come to their meeting. How else will we know about the impact and effects of measures that we're studying? We voted to adjourn, but we'll plan our next meeting soon. So thank you to all that made this meeting possible. Does anyone have anything to add to what I just presented?
Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Question from
Yes,
Mrs.
ma'am.
Wilson. Will we be getting minutes from these meetings in the very near future?
This is the report.
No.
I don't know that we need verbatim minutes.
Yes. If you receive your Robert's Rules of Order booklet, it's stated in there that all meetings should have minutes.
These are my minutes.
Well, will we be getting those minutes?
Minutes will be, I've asked the county attorney to look at this, and this will be coming before the full council and thing. Because if it's not in our ordinance book, full council will vote one way or the other how it goes in the very future, and look forward to that debate.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, but I believe it is in our ordinance.
And that's for the county attorney. That way I ain't taking no chances. Moving on to item number 11, report from Recycling and Solid Waste Committee, held March 13th. Mr. Sanders.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Said we met March the 13th, 10 a.m., to discuss long-term and short-term plans to reduce or help curb our litter epidemic. We had a representative from Palmetto Pride, which is working on a statewide campaign. We also had Anderson County Solid Waste. Sergeant Hayes was there as well. We're talking with them about working on a plan in accordance with the state's initiative. I know they have a lot of things coming on, billboards. There was also a discussion, and we voted to or discuss letting the Solid Waste Department come up with a plan, a financial plan, to determine what we need to actually get on board with the state's program. I mean, it'll be a statewide initiative, and then the county can piggyback off of that. Like I said, they have ad campaigns, boards. There were some things in there that was addressed to the state of South Carolina, and I believe during our meeting we requested that we could use their campaigns with Anderson County on there, and it was said that they did not have a problem doing that. So we basically put everything back. The Anderson County Solid Waste Department is going to have a plan and a list of financials to bring back before us to take before the Finance Committee. I don't know if the public's aware, but the state wasn't able to do, they usually help in the spring and the fall with litter pickup, but in the fall we missed out because of hurricanes, and some of the employees were sent elsewhere in the state. I would also like to thank our administrator, Mr. Burns. I received an email with a letter which I posted on social media as well. I think I also got a letter afterwards by Councilman Wilson, or Council Lady Wilson, asking our state senators and representatives for some help. I do know that Mr. Burns' letter was responded to, and the state actually sent people out on March the 14th, and I actually witnessed them myself out on 29, picking up trash and litter along the roadway. It was also stated that they're planning on coming back in the fall, in the spring as well. If anyone else on our committee would like to add, please feel free to do so at this time. And again, thank you, Mr. Burns and Ms. Wilson, for your letter.
Thank you, Chairman Sanders. Just for the record, 2 items of point on that. Our TV station has started doing a little bit of advertising on that. I think that's a great resource and everything. I think it can help get out the word. Also get out the word about the not only recycling, but how you get community and adopt the road highway program. Also, Pickens County reached out this year wanting to do a thing. I think it's too late because we already got our cleanup day set, but that might be something the committee looks at next year, going to have them the same day with Pickens County, and getting them, and they're looking at Greenville and Oconee too, and that would maybe get more publicity out there for counties doing it all at the same time. Appreciate y'all's work on this ongoing thing. Go ahead, Mr.
So on April the 13th is the county's initiative.
Cleanup day.
Yeah. So I asked everyone to get their friends and family and businesses involved, and hopefully we can make a difference one piece at a time.
Thank you. Appreciate the work y'all done.
Sure.
Moving on to item number 13, report from the Sewer Ad Hoc Committee. Chairman Wood. Chairman Wood.
Thank you, Chairman Dunn. On March, we had a Sewer Ad Hoc Committee, and we continued some items from a previous committee. staff came forward with a memorandum of understanding that would allow the county to transition operations of our sewer system in the northwestern part of the county over to REWA, which is a much larger entity that spans into Greenville County. We find that it would be a potentially cost-effective solution that would allow for expanded service in that county, and at the same time would allow the county to be able to step back on some of the infrastructure costs that would take. So with that, within your packets was the memorandum of understanding. This would be a precursor to the county going into formal negotiations on a contract. It outlines on the bullet points the items that are of most importance to make sure that we're in general agreement going into the contract negotiations, that both parties have a favorable intent and see the benefit of it, and will take the resources and time to pursue a contract. So this comes from the Sewer Ad Hoc Committee with unanimous recommendation. I move that in form of a motion to the council.
Comes from the committee, doesn't need a second. Are there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. So motion carries. Moving on to item number 4.
The second item was an item of discussion in regards to summer adjustments. If you think about it in a way of when your water comes in and your water goes out via sewer, well, in the summertime, people will use water to water their grass, to fill up their pools, to wash their cars at a higher rate. If that individual doesn't have 2 water taps, it's hard to differentiate what water came out and then went back out as sewer. And so traditionally there's been some summer adjustments within billing to accommodate that, but that doesn't always line up with the way the water companies do their billing, and there's some irregularities there. So county talked about a phase-in approach where we can start reconciling those systems so that people would get accurate billing on those summer water outputs. So, from the committee standpoint, we wanted to make sure that in aggregate people were not getting hit with any kind of increase, but that we were searching a way to make it be equitable and fair to those across the board, and would be favorable to the county. But that was just, we're going to continue the discussion with staff moving forward in the budget process.
Thank you, Chairman. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, this time we're moving on. Item number 14, report from the Finance Committee held March 15, 2019. Chairman Wood.
Thank you, Chairman Dunn. With this committee, we had a good many line items, but we started the committee meeting hearing from Coach Denny Floyd. He runs what they call a Cavaliers football team. Myself thought it was just a football team, but he went on to elaborate that they do many sports within the county, and they use the McCants Field over here behind the Meals on Wheels. And basically, whether it's for homeschool, private school, alternative school, kids, boys and girls who need a place after school to play sports, have a mentor, have a positive role model in their life, they're doing a jam-up job with this. Coach Denny Floyd is very passionate about it. Don Peppers is a community leader from the Pendleton area who's heavily involved. Michael Cowser is a coach on this team. So this is a quality program that allows for young folks to have a mentor and to have some productive outlets in the afternoons with their time. We talked about trying to help them with using the Civic Center for some practices, and that was a positive way the county could support their mission. We also talked about being a liaison to the city with them because they were incurring some costs with the city for using the McCants Field, and we wanted to work with them to help them with those expenses. And then individual council members talked about being able to help them moving forward in the budget process for next year. But with that, we received it as discussion and information, and it was a very positive way to start the meeting. But from there, we went on to some items of more technical nature. And the first one, it's bid 19-030. the title of it is a little confusing. It says aircraft rescue and fighting vehicle. So, you know, at first glance, you think that this might be like an Apache helicopter, but in reality, what it is a fire truck for the airport. And, you know, with our expanded airport, with all the good work we're doing out there, we're seeing larger and larger planes come in on a more frequent basis. Heaven forbid if there were to be a fire out there, you know, with jet fuel, we want to make sure that we have the appropriate fire truck that can respond. And the fire truck that we have in town is different than that kind of fire trucks. We want to make sure that the county had the appropriate vehicle. So there were 2 bidders. With it being a unique item, you would expect only a couple of bidders. You know, not everybody makes things like this, but the bid that procurement recommended was to a company called Oshkosh, and it's $322,107, and that came as a unanimous recommendation from the committee, and I put that in form of a motion.
Have a motion, have a second. I'm sorry, don't need a second amount of thing, but discussion. Now, I would just like to say, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Burns, Chairman, this is greatly being funded by a grant.
Yes.
Is that not correct? Yep.
Federal government, 5% from the state. We'll have approximately $17,000 in the.
We council voted, I think, next year to put this in play, and it's the bidding process here now. Any more discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Sanders.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Trump, but I think it's required by the FAA, isn't it? It's a requirement from the FAA to have to respond within a certain time frame with a certain distance, and what they have out there now does not meet those qualifications.
We've had trouble meeting them before with that thing, and almost shut down. The trouble is, we would have to have a fire truck, and it would be Center Rock, whoever would have to come stand by there. They volunteers. It'd be very difficult to come by there and stand, so to keep the airport up, we do need to do something.
Okay.
And I think it was our airport manager that went out and helped found this grant, help us fund this, and good on that right there. Anything else? All in favor of the motion, show hands. Motion carried. Chairman, carry on.
The second item was bid 19-042, is the Historic McCants Gym re-roof. And this is a gym that I grew up having activities in. It's a quality facility, but it's an older facility, and it needs to be taken care of. And for us, we needed to seriously look at putting a roof on top of it, because if it were to incur more damage, then it could reach a point that we couldn't insure it and we couldn't bring it back up to speed. So the committee heard from staff on that and had discussion, and we unanimously recommended to go ahead and re-roof this gym at a cost of $251,750. There were 7 bids, which was encouraging. I mean, this was an item that a lot of people could do. And what was also encouraging, the lowest bidder was Turnkey Construction, which was a local roofing company, and we've really made an initiative of hoping to work local when it makes sense.
Again, coming from the committee, doesn't need a second or any discussion. All in favor of the motion, show hands. With like signs, the motion carries. Mr. Chairman, moving on.
We have 3 capital items. One is a donation of a truck to the town of Honeypath. It was a roughly about a $4,000 Chevy truck. It was an older truck that we were rotating out of our fleet. And they were in need of a vehicle to be donated for their animal control department. And this seemed like just a win-win for everybody in the fact that we could work with them to get that. So that was unanimously approved, or recommended, and we bring forth that as a motion to allow Honeypath to have the Chevy truck.
Again, coming from the committee, doesn't need a second or any discussion. All in favor of the motion, show hands. So the motion carries. Moving on, Mr. Chairman.
The second item was a building in Belton. It was spoken about earlier that Belton could use this small building as a farmer's market. It's in the middle of town. They can allow police access there. It's at 101 Brazil Street. It was a building that the county owned, and we leased for a nominal amount to a local entity. That lease came up, and for us, We had discussion about the benefit of it to Belton. Obviously, being in the county, we wanted to support them as much as we could. Had about a $60,000 market appraisal value, and we had a little bit of discussion. We want to make sure if we give somebody something like this, that they use it for their benefit, they don't turn around and sell it. And we were assured with staff that we could have some precautions put in there to make sure that didn't happen. So that comes as a unanimous recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Again, doesn't need a second from the committee. We have any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Like sign, so the motion carries. Nancy, moving on, Mr. Chairman.
The last capital item was the Milltown player sign. My children went to an event there 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I believe it was, and we've been doing some very quality items up there that actually I feel is attracting folks from all over the county and even outside the county. But they had a sign that they put forth at a cost of about $5,400 and outline what they were doing, and it's a good thing going on up there, and we made a motion to recommend that unanimously.
Coming from the Finance Committee, again, doesn't need a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Those like signs, the motion carries. Moving on, Mr. Chairman.
The last item, number 6, was a financial update that just led into a level of discussion, but from the comprehensive annual financial report from 2018 and schedule of expenditures. We looked at different line items that were performing well, that were coming under budget, and just trying to get an understanding of where we're going, where we've been. In that same vein, we had discussion on how to improve operations and potentially how to incentivize staff or reward staff for operating under budget. And a lot of times, spending throughout the year is not consistent. It can be up and down depending on the timing of the year, ending the year, or the beginning of the year. And we wanted to make sure that we put in procedures that allow staff to feel confident that they can provide the utmost service to county, but also that if they were to find ways to make improvements and to save money, that they're rewarded for that and recognized for that, and that we didn't have any negative incentives in place. And so we had robust discussion about that, heard from staff, heard from council members, and really had a lot of items that we'll take forward to the next meeting and continue the conversation with. But with that, that concludes what we spoke about at the Finance Committee held on March 15th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to item number 15, report.
Here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, also in the Finance Committee meeting, we had an issue there on 6A. Will that one be carried over into the next council meeting will discussion on that be continued in the next financial meeting? Because that's important.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and that's what I asked staff with all this, that, whenever we have discussion on this, I don't want it to end at one meeting. I want it to continue and hopefully grow to some kind of resolution, either that we either act on it or decide to change it, but most definitely.
Okay, but we're not prepared to discuss it.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to item number 15, report from the Public Safety Committee held March 18, 2019. Chairman Graham. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in reference to a meeting held March 18th for Public Safety Committee. As one of the council members from Pelzer had discussed earlier, this is an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Pelzer, along with Anderson County Sheriff's Department. It's actually a fairly common practice state. Sorry. Basically what it's doing is allowing county deputies, they've done some figuring, and basically they've got it down to where the town of Pelzer is going to hire off-duty deputies, which would patrol in the Pelzer town limits, naturally in uniform, in marked vehicles as a deputy station specifically for that area, and the town of Pelzer is actually going to cover the cost of that. This will be in addition to the actual region deputy that's already assigned to that area, which is actually outside of Pelzer as well. And in a sense, it's an opportunity for them to get some extra coverage without having to front the money up front for a police department or starting something like that up. Basically, it kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of get ahead of the game and see if there's, what benefits it brings. A lot of times it can bring some tremendous benefit as far as economic development or curb some problems in some specific areas. So definitely commend them for taking a step toward doing this, and commend the sheriff and his staff for working this plan out. This was voted on at Public Safety, and it's brought before full council for your support with 100% support from the Public Safety Committee.
Again, coming from committee, doesn't need a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? Abstentions? So the motion carries unanimously. Ms. Floyd, you abstaining?
I did.
Okay. Mr. Davis, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Graham, Mr. Wooten, Ms. Wilson in favor, Ms. Floyd abstains. Moving on, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For council members that did support that, I do appreciate it. It does bring some benefit throughout our to our citizens in Anderson County. Moving on to number 4 is discussion concerning small unmanned aircraft safety and privacy issues. This is basically to kind of bring it down to layman's terms. It's concerning drones throughout the county. It's beginning to be a pretty popular hobby that people has as far as with these drones, and there's been some issues as far as on personal level, as far as with citizens, and also members of the community that's had some issues where basically they feel like their privacy has been impeded on. With that being said, this was brought forth to public safety from our last council meeting that we look at this. Basically, there was no action taken, no action recommended back to full council. We have got several questions concerning, basically what's the FAA responsibilities as far as enforcing that's already in place, and on the other hand is what can the county do? What can we put in place that's not going to step on FAA's policy already there? And basically, how can we make a situation better? I mean, whether it's through an ordinance or whether it's through working with FAA or whoever. So we've got a lot of questions from the committee out. Our attorney is going to be checking on some of those and trying to get us some answers back. Ms. Wilson, she has done a tremendous amount of research on this with the FAA, and is remaining in contact with them on a regular basis and bringing information back as far as what's already in place. The biggest thing that we, and I say we, I think all the way across through government lines, whether it's local, state, federal, it's always real easy to raise your hand to enforce or to put something in place, but we don't put the meat and potatoes behind it to actually enforce it or give the true backing as far as what it would need to basically solve the issue. So in a sense, I think that's what the committee has recommended, that we kind of do our homework and determine what can actually we do as a county to make it better for our citizens. At this time, there's no recommendation on that. We will be carrying that on with some other meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to hearing that. Appreciate the committee's work. Moving on to item number 16, road acceptance into the county inventory. There's no objections. We can take all 3 of these at one time. Make the motion. We'll accept these into the county's inventory as long as they meet all county standards and with fast recommendation. Put that in form of a motion.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. All opposed? Abstentions? Mr. Davis, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Graham, Mr. Wooten, Ms. Wilson favored. No opposition, and Ms. Floyd abstains. Moving on to appointments. Are there any appointments tonight? I'm not aware of. Any seeing move on to request for council members. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to allocate from my Special Projects Fund $300 to the Piedmont Public Service Commission to be carried on to the Piedmont Crime Watch Group. This is a group that's very active in the Piedmont area and is working hand in hand with the Anderson County Sheriff's Department, and they're doing a lot of great things, and this will help them with their advertising and just reaching out into the community to aid our sheriff's department and helping curb crime in Piedmont. So I make that in form of a motion.
Have a motion, Mr. Davis. Have a second. Mr. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Mr. Davis?
That's all, sir.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes, sir. I'd like to put in form of a motion for the Riverside Middle and Pendleton High School archery teams in District 4, the sum of $1,000. And also, and I don't know how to do this the proper way, maybe you can assist me, the Anderson Class Tiny Home Foothills Community Foundation. I would like to donate $1,000 to them, but I'm also in the process of working on getting the concrete poured and the foundation done as a gift. So I guess what I'd want to do is $1,000 there, and then I'm working on getting the slab and some other things done for them.
Put that in form of motion.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion?
That's awesome.
All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign. So the motion carries unanimous. Anything else, Mr. Sanders?
No, sir. I'm fine. Thank you.
Ms. Floyd?
I have some plans in the future, but I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, if I could, I've got several doing all at one time, if that's fine with you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to do $1,000 to the Tiny Home Fund. I'd like to do $300 to West Side Community Center, and I'd like to do $2,000 to Belton Alliance for the chili cook-off.
Mr. Graham, put that in form of motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like signs. Motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Mr. Graham?
That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Wooten?
Yes, I would like to help the Leadership Anderson Tiny Home Foundation, but I plan to do it in the next fiscal year. Just for budgeting, I don't know that I can be of much help with what I have on my balance. But for the West Side Community Center, made a request to all council members. I'd make a motion to do $250.
Thank you. Have a second, Ms. Wilson. Any more discussion? Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Opposed, like sign. So the motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Ms. Wooten? Ms. Wilson?
District 7 Sprague.
Okay. Out of District 5's special recreation, special source account, like to appropriate $1,500 to the West Side Community Center. Also like to appropriate $1,500 to Tiny Homes. Put that in form of motion.
Second.
Second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Any opposed? So the motion carries unanimously. Thank y'all. Moving on, item number 19, request for endorsement for the Family Promise of Anderson County and United Housing Connections. I think we've done this in the past. I'll let Mr. Burns explain it.
This in the past, these groups work to provide services for the homeless in Anderson County. There's no monetary contribution requested to the county. They just request county council to endorse and allow us to send a letter on your behalf.
We have a motion to move this forward.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Davis, second, Ms. Wilson. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, show of hands. Like signs, so the motion carries. Administrator's report.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 21, citizens' comments. Mr. Harmon calls your name. Please step forward, state your name for the record in your district, address the chair, and you got 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, first citizen signed up is Tanya Winbush.
Thank you so much. I am a part of, I think, District 2, which is, or 1, Mr. Wooten. And my name is Tanya Winbush. I just really want to address Ms. Floyd, how she constantly asks questions and she clarifies everything. The only thing that we have is what you give us, which is this. And the people that come up to give a report or kind of give us a background, we don't have privy to any meeting minutes that I think was appropriate to ask for the minutes, because if you tell us what they said, you're going to miss something. And that's why the rules are there. That's why we have policies. That's why we try to follow what people have taught us to do with the rules that Ms. Floyd has suggested. I don't think that that's unreasonable to ask for minutes for every meeting. I work, I have children, and I can't be at every planning meeting, every sewer ad hoc meeting, every meeting that they're talking about here. And I would just want to really, really applaud Ms. Floyd for allowing us the opportunity to break everything down and to say, this is what this means, and this is why that you are saying this, and this is what you're referring to, because it makes it plain for me. And even the little bit that she does, which I really want even more explanation, I just want to applaud you, and I'm hoping that we can bring more suggestions to that. I would like to be able to get the video as well, and I've been trying to find it and I can't, so I'll ask later on how to get that. But I think that that would make more citizens want to be a part of these meetings if they knew what was going on. It's a lot of information that's being put out, and if we had those minutes somewhere, or if it was a part of the email, or those packets, those long documents, for you not to have them available to us, it's an insult to say maybe that I wouldn't understand, but I would, and a lot of other citizens would as well. And so I just appreciate you, and I thank you, and I hope that you do more of that, and I hope that this statement and this comment will have more of an impact and an influence, and we will be getting more information in reference to what's going on in the county council. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, next speaker is Elizabeth Fant.
Elizabeth Fant, District 3. I want to talk about safety issues. You've touched on a lot of them tonight. I happened to go down on the street side, the Uptown Lounge, heading towards Main Street. Building is a building, the Johnson Building. It's right there, and there's no curb or no sidewalk beside it. Skinny little piece of a road to get down. As I was coming down, there were two individuals who had what looked like a forklift, tube forklift, kept raising up and raising box. There weren't any cones out in the road. There weren't any blocking me from going down there, but I saw it going on, and I thought about these commercials where you see a piano falling off of a building on top of the car, and I said, I'm not going there. Anyway, it finally got to the top, and there was an individual on top of the building that was trying to grab a box. After they grabbed the box, I came up to the two individuals, and I was going to, they could forward a message to their boss, and neither one of them spoke English. So I realized probably they didn't even realize this big safety issue there. I find that unconscionable. That how that can happen in the city. There must be safety regulations about blocking off and cones and so forth. I don't understand how stuff like that happens. The new courthouse is getting a roof. I had mentioned to Mr. Burns, I thought they needed it. I could see tiles. They've had the parking lot blocked off for a good long while in the back. I want to suggest about that parking lot. Number one, there shouldn't be any individual that parks back there that works in that courthouse, with the exception, perhaps, of the major judges have a designated parking place. Sheriff's Patrol, all the other employees, they need to park in the parking garage. That parking lot needs to be for the individuals who are coming to business, people who are coming there daily to work. When they rework the parking lot, to design it with angled lines, not square lines. You can hardly get in a parking place there. And they've got so many jammed in there that when you do try to park in there, if there's one empty, you're at the risk of running into somebody or whacking a door off. Mr. Burns, I'm putting that as a hot and heavy recommendation. We got real problems with our roads. Over in Belton, we have 2 sinkholes. I'm not talking about a pothole. I'm talking about where you look down into it, it goes to black. Where? We've had so much rain. I don't know what all is wrong with the roads there. It just so happens that these 2, one are in private parking lot and the other
Time,
one is...
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Next.
Next speaker is William Meredith.
What I was talking about and try to expand just to a small degree. But I'd like to thank y'all for what I heard tonight. I'm heartened to hear the amicus brief thing that we're going to be standing up to these people that are hopefully not going to be allowed to get away with polluting Broadway Lake. But yeah, again, we got a little Facebook thing I think somebody may have already signed up for. It's called Waste Nothing. That's what I want to do. But I'd like to see us commit, elected officials and as citizens, just try and do better. We're wasting a lot of our resources by virtue of petty turf wars or bureaucratic whatever. I heard, and I appreciate what you're doing. I have worked for the Great American Cleanup or Anderson County Cleanup for several years now. And you know, I mean, it's good. I'm glad we're doing it, but we could do so much better. And you know, I don't know why we're just doing it twice a year. Why don't we do it every season? Why don't we do it 4 times a year? You know, I said something about schools earlier. You know, every school could be a drop-off location for people to take their recyclables. Cardboard's a profitable recycle, according to our recyclable specialist. We got Clemson University right up the road. They're #1 in college football. Okay, rah rah. Well, we could be #1 in environmentalism if we dedicated ourselves to doing that. It would be incredibly beneficial economically. People want to live in desirable locations. We have a beautiful natural environment here, but we're not taken care of. And so I'd like to challenge you. This is what I'm trying to get citizens involved through this little Facebook thing, and that'll make it happen. But we got to get, you know, cities and towns working together, because I mean, if you're a resident of the city, you're still a resident of the county. You're still paying county taxes, and they're still using the same landfill. So I understand it. It costs us money ultimately to everything that goes in that landfill costs us a little bit of money. So anything we can keep out of it will save us that little bit of money. So it makes economic sense. It makes environmental sense, and we got to educate our kids. Why don't we have competitions between, you know, Hannah and Westside? Who's the best environmentalist? We got to just, like I say, we have a lack of imagination is the way I look at it. I think we got a lot of doing things the way we've always done it, and I think we ought to, you know, look outside the box a little bit. So I'd like to challenge every one of you to do it. Thank you. Good job you're doing. I just hope we can all, you know, do a little better. Turn it up, okay? Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Mr. Harmon.
No one else has signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Harmon, comments from council members. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Interestingly enough, our county finished #1 in the state for recycling last year. So we've got a long ways to go, but it was a good start. The other item is that our county council has in its codes of ordinances a prescription how we run our meetings. And every January, after we nominate a new chairman, the next meeting, he's supposed to address the standing committees. Standing committees in our county are so vitally important. There were never any standing committees until 2009, not in the years I came in since 2001. I could not get public information. I even went all the way to the state Supreme Court trying to get access to financial ledgers for our county and to look at why we were spending $1 million plus or minus every year on legal expenses. Not case files, mind you, just the legal expense invoices. Most of us up here are supposed to be considered part-time employees. Right now we have all the standing committees appointed. We have a number of ad hoc committees appointed. It's our way to look at the issues and get input from people and study it before it comes back in the form of a resolution or an ordinance. It's not a perfect process. There's a lot of discussion. Most all of us make reports back to the committee. The meetings are recorded. I'm sure you could get a copy of the recording, and we'll take up the potential of minutes for those meetings, but every report that's made on the floor comes back in the minutes of the regularly scheduled council. So we may be adding more to the paper trail than what we want to deal with, but we are so grateful to have citizens who are interested, who want to come and learn with us and give us their input. That is a real treasure and of great value to the process of the county. Thank you.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, anything that we can do to make it more transparent and readily accessible, I mean, I'd be willing to entertain that and figure out a functional way to make it happen. And in regards to recycling, I'm 100% with you. It's we got to be innovative, but we also got to be, tactical on what can we do in the immediate future. But both those things are positive things, and look forward to speaking about it in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of same thing on recycling and all. The sad thing about it, this is a true issue all the way across the nation. And I definitely think we've got a major problem here in Anderson County, and it's going to take citizens like yourself to spearhead ideas as far as getting out there and leading cleanups. I know I've got one in my district that does it on a regular basis, and that's what's going to take to truly make a difference. I think another very important thing is maybe getting, we've truly been blessed with economic development. If we get some of the industries involved, for them to challenge their employees to get out and maybe have a cleanup day as well, and I mean, things like that is what's going to truly make a major impact. One or two people, I like what Mr. Sanders had commented on Facebook, one piece at a time. And that's true. That's what it's going to take. But, I mean, to truly see an impact, we're going to have to get some major players involved. And I think that's going to take getting, some of your volunteer fire departments, your Boy Scout groups, some of your industry leaders. You go piling all that together, it's going to be a lot of trash at the time. And that's where you're going to drive through and you're going to see a major difference overnight, and I think that's what it's going to take. And the other thing, I think, I harp on this every time, is education. I think we truly got to change the mentality. Kids don't need to realize throwing a piece of trash out the window is norm. They need to realize it's wrong, and we've got to educate them to change that mentality. Appreciate what everyone in public safety is doing. I know we've had a couple meetings, and I've spoken to different ones through EMS, fire service, law enforcement. Sheriff's doing a great job. I mean, we continue moving forward. Appreciate everything that everyone's doing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd.
Thank you. We did not always have committee meetings because we found out years ago that when you have the committee meetings, some folks don't get information. Just the people that was in the room at the time, they're the ones who know everything, and they are the ones who we don't get information. Let me explain. Let me give you an illustration. Sometimes back there in 2003 or 4, a bus company came to us, Anderson County, and offered us $600,000 to buy a bus so we could take our kids back and forth to Tri-County Tech and back. $600,000. It was mentioned to the, I think it was the Financial Committee, like the papers say, the Powerful Financial Committee. They turned it down. They turned it down. I didn't know about it until I went to a meeting up in Pendleton, and I met with the people who told me that they offered to give us a bus to help us transport our kids. The Powerful Financial Committee didn't say nothing. Didn't even bring it to the county the council for us to vote it up or vote it down. They just said no. We didn't get it. Other things have happened that we don't know about because we aren't there. We decided years ago that it would be best for all things to come before the council, and we will discuss it. And it's proven to be better. The last financial committee meeting I went to, it was a good meeting, very good meeting, but they were tired. Why were they tired? Because of the same people they had 3 meetings that morning, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 12:30. And we had people there who was on all 3 committees, and they were tired. They were tired. Because there's not enough people to go around to all these committees, the same people over and over and over and over again. So, and we did better. We did better. Okay, the minutes. We're gonna have to have minutes, folks. It says in everything, any meeting you have ever been to in your whole life, you have got minutes. And you mean to tell me that the powerful financial committee doesn't have to give me minutes? Or the sewer committees, I don't have to sit, they're gonna come and read to me what they want me to know. Suppose we did you like that, okay? The roads that we were given tonight to bring into the county has always been a very, very watched thing, because we don't want to take in roads that do not meet the standards of Anderson County. Do not. And I remember Fred Tyler used to always ask everybody, does it meet the standards of Anderson County? But tonight, we voted on one that we said, if it meets the standards, we'll take it in. We didn't vote to take it in because it meets the standards. Also, the lack of information that I did not get because it was not put in the books. A lot of the 3 of us didn't have it in our books. So I was denied the fact of, I don't know what they're talking about. It was mentioned that this was something that got by them last year. I think that's what I heard, because I don't understand a lot of what's happening, what's being said, and I'm not deaf. But anyway, those are the things that I have to say. I know sometimes it makes me feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. But you know, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sanders?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just quickly address Vice Chairman Graham's, talking about getting manufacturers involved. I know I've actually talked with Terry Gilstrap with the Manufacturing Alliance and Economic Development. She's working on a plan for us. And also, I'm new to council. There's a lot of things I don't know. I like the idea of committees. I can go in there, I can ask questions. I'm talking with the people in charge, whether it be dealing with litter. I'm actually talking with the solid waste head guy. I can ask questions. I can put them on the spot. I can make a more informed decision. And then the packets that I heard a lady request about it's a book. And I mean, I sit down and I take pride in what I'm doing up here for Anderson County, my district. I read every word, everything in there. If I have a question, I'll go back to the source. I understand the litter problem, printing all this stuff out for everyone in the county. I mean, look at what we're doing with litter there. I mean, most people will thumb through it and never read beyond the first page or paragraph. But I would like to go on record and say that any committee that I'm on, I think you can reach out to our clerk of council. Any committee I'm on, my personal cell phone number's on there. If someone is not able to attend the meeting, whether it be in my district or not in my district, please feel to reach out to me. I will discuss anything, try to answer any questions. If I don't know the answer, I will find an answer for you. And hopefully we can get it addressed to where people can be a little more informed. But until then, like I said, reach out to our clerk. Any questions, any things you have for me, I'll be more than happy to discuss with anyone. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
I have nothing, sir.
Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody coming to the meeting tonight. Meeting adjourned.
Okay. Thank you. You might have to help me to